A long time ago, there was a man who dreamed of flying. He would look up at the birds in the sky and wonder why he could undo the same. He wanted to feel the wind beneath his wings and soar above the clouds. But he didn't have wings, so he decided to make some. Gathered feathers and leaves and vines and wove them together into a beautiful pair of wings. Then he tied them to his arms and jumped off a high place. But the leaves and feathers were not strong enough, and he fell. And as he fell, he cried out, "Oh, Icarus, how I wanted to fly." This story has been told for centuries. It's the story of a man who dared to dream of flying. A man who dared to defy gravity and challenge the limits of human possibility. It's the story of a man named Icarus. Now, this isn't the story of Icarus. This is the story of aviation. From the first primitive gliders to the sleek supersonic jets of today, aviation has always been about pushing the boundaries of what's possible. It's about the thrill of flight, the freedom of soaring through the skies. But it's also about overcoming challenges and achieving the seemingly impossible. And no one knows this better than the Wright brothers. In the early 1900s, Wilbur and Orville Wright were two bicycle mechanics from Dayton, Ohio. They had a dream, though. A dream that was bigger than anything their small town had ever seen. They wanted to build a flying machine, something that would allow people to take to the skies like birds. At the time, this was seen as a crazy, maybe even impossible dream. Most people thought that heavier-than-air flight was just not possible. But the Wright brothers didn't let anyone stand in their way. They spent years studying the science of flight, experimenting with different designs and building and testing models. Finally, on December 17, 1903, their hard work paid off. The Wright Flyer took to the skies for the first time, staying airborne for just over 12 seconds. It wasn't much, but it was enough to change the world forever. As the 20th century rolled on, aviation grew rapidly. The First World War showed the world the potential of powered flight, with planes being used for everything from reconnaissance to combat. After the war, commercial aviation began to grow as companies like Boeing and Douglas began to produce planes for civilian use. These planes were slower and smaller than the ones used in the war, but they were reliable and safe. Before long, people everywhere were taking to the skies. By the Second World War, planes were being used even more widely, with many different types being used for many different purposes. The war saw the introduction of some of the most famous planes in history, such as the Spitfire and the B-17 Flying Fortress. The end of the war saw the beginning of the jet age, with commercial jets taking their first passengers in the late 1940s. Since then, commercial aviation has grown exponentially, with more than 4 billion passengers flying each year. Today, there are more than 200 commercial airlines operating more than 25,000 flights every day. There are planes that can carry more than 500 passengers and fly halfway around the world in less than 24 hours. But despite all this, the dream of flight is still alive. There are new developments in aviation all the time, such as electric planes. Planes that can fly without pilots, and even planes that can fly into space. Who knows what the future will bring? Maybe one day we'll all be able to afford our own personal jets, or maybe one day we'll all be able to fly to other planets. The possibilities are really endless, no matter what the future holds. One thing is for sure, the dream of flight is one that has captured the human imagination for centuries. From Icarus to the Wright brothers to Chuck Yeager and Neil Armstrong, there are countless stories of daring individuals who dared to reach for the skies. These are the people who have made aviation what it is today, and they continue to inspire us all to push the boundaries of what is possible. So next time you look up in the sky and see a plane soaring overhead, remember the countless people who dared to dream of flight. Remember the dreamers, the believers, and the pioneers who made it possible. Because without them, we would still be looking up at the birds and wondering why we couldn't fly.